This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are talking about the NFL draft. We are breaking down all the big stories from the draft, but specifically, we're going to be talking about the Browns draft. We're going to be grading each pick as well as giving an overall grade. And what do we think about Shedeur Sanders going to the Browns? Was it worth it, or is it a high risk? All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh, and we are live and well. It's going to be, as this comes out, it'll be May already. Which, oh my word, Josh, we're already in May. That's kind of wild to think about. But also, Josh, we got through the draft and everything. But we noticed you have a nice new setup with a sofa. Are you going to take a nap during today's show? Is that the plan?
Hey, I feel like I could, man. We had our factory-wide environment, health, and safety meeting at an off-campus
That's
site.
a lot of words, by the way. That's a lot of words.
Well, they call it EHS Day, but nobody here would know what EHS stands for, so I just gotta spell it all out. But for everyone that does know what Kalahari, the water park, is, we have it at their convention center. So it's in the area. It's just off-site, so it can host like everybody from all the crews and all the departments, but it's on day shift, and I last worked Monday night, and this is Wednesday morning now, so trying to figure out how I'm going to manage to sleep. So I slept 4 hours Tuesday, and then I managed to get about 4 last night, so maybe I will take a nap on the show. I don't know, Ben, but I was watching some fun hockey games last night. That was probably up a little too late watching that too, so I can bear some of that responsibility, but even still, falling asleep at night instead of daytime is
so
hard to do.
Basically, it's hard for you to be a normal human. Again.
It is. If you want me to function and like the stuff like going to church Sunday mornings, or if I have a doctor's appointment or something like that in the morning because I can't do the afternoon, it's so freaking hard, dude.
Basically, everyone, Josh is a zombie most of the time, and he only comes out at night. He's a raccoon. Basically, he's a raccoon. That's what we're saying. He's a buffed raccoon. He's a buffed raccoon.
Up raccoon, yeah. So that's a summary of I guess my current state right now. But as far as since we last met, got some time to check the draft out. Definitely some things that I liked. I was gonna throw out too. I got 5.5 picks right from our last mock.
It's so bad.
I'll throw on the half because I at least got Mason Graham going 5. It's just we didn't predict any trades or anything like that, and I probably wouldn't have picked that trade to happen anyway. But we'll get into it
like
since
3.
It involved our Cleveland Browns.
3.
But
the
other thing that I thought, just general observation from the draft, was since it was like kind of easy to predict the first several picks, like we might have just slightly had them out of order, but like the first
we did pretty good.
The first 10-ish guys, like there were some that we didn't all get right, but like we pretty much had the same pick, and it's like, yeah, because this draft did not have the a lot of top end talent like we thought. It was very top heavy, just a few, superstar guys, and those were guys that were going to go first, regardless if the team needed them or not, because it was such a drop off as the draft kept going on for talent. But got to see that, got some NHL playoff action in, a little baseball. That's about how the week's been, but we'll probably talk heavily on the draft today.
Yeah. It was actually, my weekend was kind of fun because I was obviously keeping track of the draft, but obviously I'm 6 hours different. So like basically the first 2 nights I basically picked up in the morning. So I would wake up and see what was happening. The Saturday one I could kind of keep up, but then we had a game on Sunday. We were down, Josh, you'll love this. The team that beat us in the championship last year, right? We're facing them in the regular season. We basically started playing kind of like a Ohio State football did, whereas like we don't show up in the first half, and only show up in the second half. And so that's what happened, right? And so we were down 14-0 at half, and then we came back, but we missed a 2-point conversion, so we were down. I think it was 14-12, I think, at one point, and then we had a pick 6 to win the game. It was the most like epic kind of like redemption storyline you could see, and it was pretty cool. So that's how I finished my weekend. But speaking of the draft, first off, I don't know if you watched any of McAfee's show, but you know how like they had the one guy who always dresses up as Mel Kiper, and he's been really ticked off that his Packers haven't drafted a wide receiver. To see this dude,
Ty Schmidt,
to see this dude like just so elated. Like he was like pumping his fist.
Matthew Golden.
He was like, "Go Pack, go!" I mean, you have to watch it online, guys. If go watch it. It is hilarious. because he for 4 years he's just been like berating his own team because of what he's done. But anyways, getting back to the draft. Yes, so I had an epiphany, Josh. I was riding on a tram back from work, 40 minutes, it takes a while. And I thought, we've never done this before, Josh. We've never actually looked at the Browns draft and graded it and kind of talked about each pick and like what our thoughts are and kind of give it overall thoughts of the Browns draft. We've always like mentioned it or like we'd be frustrated or happy with like one person, but we never looked at the whole selection and kind of overall. And I figured it's a lot easier doing that than going through each team and grading each team because that would take us hours to do. And I figured we talk about the Browns all the time. I think it's well deserved that we actually focus on the Browns. So that's what we're going to, majority of today is going to be, obviously talk about Shedeur and everything with that. And then we'll finish up with some basketball and baseball talk at the end. But how do you think about that, Josh? Does that sound good?
Yeah, we can roll with that. So a couple things to note first. It's been a while since the Browns have been having first or
That's
second
true.
round picks.
It's been since we were
Seems
young.
like, yeah, since we were young, since we were wee lads of about 25 years old or however long ago it was. But yeah, just kicking it off, we had the second pick and we traded it back. There was some thought that we might do that because we weren't sure if they would go the Abdul Carter route, although that's what I mocked because I thought it'd be great to have him and Miles together. Weren't sure if Travis Hunter would really be somebody that could help change our franchise and put us in the direction we need to go. And taking somebody like Will Campbell at 2 might have been too early. So it's like, why don't we trade back a little bit and see if we can get somebody to bite? And I guess the Jags were willing to do that. And that wasn't, I
They
mean, I
stole
loved
that,
Abdul.
man.
They did. When you see everything that we got, I understand why we did it, and I'm not going to fight it too much. I loved Abdul Carter. I like Mason Graham. But with all the extra picks that we got, the first rounder next year, the extra second this year, it's like, okay, we're a team that hasn't had a first round pick the last 3 years. The fact that they also were willing to do that and not go the quarterback route shows me that they know they're more than just a quarterback away, and they're going to go ahead and get some pieces to throw all around the team and make it better. So I guess
What would
looking
you
at what I
grade that?
saw overall, the
What would you grade
the
that
whole
first pick?
entire
Well,
the
let's go
whole
first.
entire
Let's go
draft.
picks. Let's go picks, and then we'll at the end we'll give our full grade for the Browns. I think. I think
Yeah.
that's more suspenseful.
So yeah, that was the first one, Mason Graham, and then in the second round they threw a curveball and they took that linebacker from UCLA,
Which I like, man. I
Carson
like it. I'll talk about it in a second.
Carson Schwessinger. I don't know if I'm going to say
Schlesinger,
his
yeah, that's
name
how you
right
say it.
for
Yeah,
few years, yeah. But a guy that I was taken aback because this linebacker class wasn't that great. I ain't hear any talk about this guy being a first or second round pick really from any of the major draft people. But super smart kid from what I can read. Really good intelligence, quick, a little bit undersized.
can do everything. A little bit of everything.
Also found it fascinating that they went that route because Andrew Berry's literally said that linebackers aren't that important in today's NFL, and so he takes one what I thought was like a reach in the second round, but. I'm willing to wait and see how he pans out, but I thought there was an opportunity to really boost the offense in that second round. So that pick I'm kind of on, but loved grabbing Judkins. And then eventually later in the sixth round, Dylan Sampson for some reason still there. So looks like we've got a plan post Nick Chubb. And if it's Judkins and Sampson and Jerome Ford, if we're still going to roster him or not, I think that that's something we can be
Yeah.
satisfied with. And then since we missed out, therefore, on a lot of the wide receiver talent, although there wasn't a ton, but pretty much all of it was gone in the first 2 rounds. We go ahead in the third round and go the tight end route with Harold Fannin,
I love that
uh,
pick.
who absolute dog from BG. And we also know that
Surprised he was still
Stefanski,
there. Surprised he was
yeah,
still there, to be honest.
we know Stefanski loves the two tight end sets. He's tried to force feed Harrison Bryant and other guys that don't have any business touching a football, drawn specific plays for them. And it's like these guys aren't that good, Kevin. Just focus on Njoku, okay? But we got a guy that I think can be a solid playmaker for us, and opposite Njoku. So we got two good tight ends there. And then that's when we get to the next head scratcher, which is Dylan Gabriel, Ben. We thought we had the quarterback room set with Deshaun Watson coming back whenever he would from injury. We traded a draft pick for Kenny Pickett, and we went and threw a few million at Joe Flacco to come back and be in that room too. And then we go and draft Dylan Gabriel of all people. Uh, the only ones that were off the board at this point, obviously, were Cam Ward first and Jackson Dart, and then Tyler Shuck, and then Jalen Milrow, and I think that was it. So
Yeah.
we had I I didn't think we needed a quarterback to begin with, but then the fact that it was Gabriel here out of everybody, I was just like, okay, I don't really know what that was about. I wasn't even sure Dylan Gabriel was going to get drafted, to be honest. Just playing college football for 9 years, being almost 30 years old, and usually with all the injuries, and when you have to play college that long, it means you're not an NFL quarterback. So that one I was kind of on too. Round four comes, or excuse me, round four. Yeah, Dylan Sampson wasn't in the sixth round. He was the fourth round. I screwed that up. So we got Sampson in the fourth. That was solid. And then fifth round is what's going to get a lot of conversation is because we traded back into the fifth round or traded up in the fifth round to grab another quarterback, Ben, and one that nobody thought would be available in the fifth round, and that's Shador Sanders.
Yeah.
We'll save more
Yeah.
conversation for that because we're just going for an overall draft grade right now. But
So I would say
very confusing to have five
yeah.
quarterbacks
I
at
I
this
would
point now.
I would say this before we because I do want to talk about Shador. Let's give each draft pick a grade because I think you touched on some really good points. So I want to talk about Mason Graham for a second.
That was the rest of the draft too. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did not have a pick in the
Yeah.
sixth and seventh round. I'm scrolling through to make sure I
Yes.
didn't miss any,
No,
but
you didn't. So
that
Mason
caps it
Graham.
off.
Mason Graham. First off, I thought there was a part of me that thought Ashton Genty was going to get drafted here. I was like, there's a slight chance I thought they might do it, but I know they wouldn't going to because that's 30 million of guaranteed money. For me, Mason Graham is interesting because I think this they definitely had to talk to Garrett about this. Would you agree? I think they had to talk to him about this. Be like, hey, are you all right bringing in a guy? A defense. I feel like he was in that conversation, saying, hey, now use a quarterback here. Let's go out and get another defender, which I think was interesting. You don't go Abdul Carter. So maybe they're not confident inside and they're saying, hey, we'll plug and play a guy on the outside. I like Mason Graham. I know he's from Michigan, but I like the fact that he is just a dominant force, whether run, pass. He can kind of be more of a three tech versus also a nose guard as well. For me, I thought it was a solid thing. He's not a splash, like we've talked about. He's not a splash guy. He's not going to be like, oh, look who they got. But I'm going to give it a solid A because I feel like it covers a need they need on defense and a guy that can disrupt for years to come with Garrett next to him. So I'm going to give it an A for the first one.
Yeah, that first one, I'm kind of in the same boat. There's not a whole lot of defensive tackles that can change the course of your franchise. Like Aaron Donald is like one
Yeah,
in a
of
million.
course.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
usually the franchise changing pieces or the big ones are like your quarterbacks, your left tackles, and your
Your ends.
edge rushers. And defensive line still was like a need that needed to be addressed. So we addressed that. Mason Graham was the best defensive tackle, the best available defensive lineman at this point too. And I think when you couple it with the draft, and we didn't really uh, fall back too far. We still got one of
Got
the
a second
better
round
players
pick
in this
and got
draft.
a first round pick.
Got the draft capital. Yeah, like I'm gonna package all of those with Mason Graham in my consideration, give it an A minus.
And I think too, we're going to truly see what that grade of this trade will be next year with what we use that second pick with. And let's hope the Jaguars suck, and so it's like top 10.
Right.
But okay, so that one goes the second round. This is where I thought, and I didn't text you this, but I was thinking they're going to go Will Johnson here. Like I'm like Will Johnson sitting
Yeah,
there.
Will Johnson was
I
another
thought
guy that
for
fell, and in the
sure,
second round, like that
or
high
Shadur.
upside.
I thought Shadur as well. There was a chance they draft him here. Then they go linebacker, and at first I was like, "Ew, really gross." But then I started thinking about it, and I go, "This means two things. One, I think Barry's opening up to, hey, we need good linebackers because we've kind of had some soft linebackers over the last few years.
We have.
And two, that means JOK is probably done. Like the fact that you're drafting a guy who plays the same position as JOK. So for me, I think you bring in a guy who's doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on him because he was a walk on for like 2 or 3 years. So he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, I feel like, on his body. And also a guy who's very intelligent, very smart, can lead that defense. Almost feels like a Luke Kuechly kind of pick. Not same talent, but like the idea that he's very smart, he's very intelligent, he could do a lot of great things. So I really like the pick. I'm going to give it a B plus. I feel like they could have went other areas, but I'm going to still say they covered an area that they need help in. So I'm going to go B plus.
Yeah, I mean, this is ESPN's player ranking, but they ranked him the 53rd best player in their draft and the second best linebacker, and that's kind of the thing too that I guess helps it is we needed a linebacker, but I thought we could have waited on that. I guess if you're some good things to say about the kid, like you said, he was a walk-on, so you know he's a hard worker. Started off as a walk-on and led the country in solo tackles last year with 90.
Buckus
I thought,
finalist.
yeah, so. I'm gonna go ahead and give it like a C plus. There's obviously some think players that I thought would have been better. This is where I thought maybe they go. Since Will Johnson fell, like maybe we could go ahead and get that, and that can be like our extra depth for the
Trey
secondary.
Newsome
If he pans out, it ends up being
and Trey
sick. Yeah.
Newsome.
Uh, or even like go the running back route here, and I know that Travion Henderson goes later. That was someone that I thought we might be able to grab, if not Judkins first.
I
Still were able to get him, and we'll talk about that pick
yeah.
later. Uh, Luther Burden was another one that I thought like wide receiver, just that need right there is like we need another guy with Judy, and that was a guy that
And then
was
they
probably a
signed
first
then they
round
signed the
talent that
worst
fell.
behavior guy ever after the draft, which I'm like, huh? What are we doing?
Yeah, so at this point, I was just kind of like, yeah. So we could have waited, I think, to get this guy. We didn't need to take him this early, so I'm giving it a C plus.
I
But
I I do I do think it's interesting because obviously didn't know this at the time because the next pick was obviously Quinton Judkins.
and it ended up being Judkins. He was still
This
there.
is my thing. If it was Judkins, if you thought you were taking two running backs, why not go Judkins Henderson 1-2? Like your first two picks be Judkins Henderson. Because if in generally you've seen them work together, and that mind because Henderson and Sampson, they're not identical. Obviously Henderson's a little more speedy. He has a better than the catching in the backfield, but it would just make sense. That's just what came to my head. But anyways, when I look at Judkins, I look at a poor man's Nick Chubb, at least as of right now. Right? What I mean by that is he's a power runner. He's going to block. He doesn't fumble the football. He takes care of your quarterback by blocking and doing all the little things. A great leader. And you look at Ohio State, and you've saved him this year because remember we've talked about the first 2 years he was carrying the ball so much that he had to go to Ohio State in order to save his body, and I think that helped. And I think that hurt his draft stock because I think if he did the same thing he did at Ole Miss, he would probably be a first round pick. I mean, just what his level was. I still thought maybe he would go in the first round, but obviously people thought Omari Hampton was better than him. So for me personally, I think Judkins is a great fit. I mean, it's sad to know that by selecting him, that's telling Nick Chubb there's the door. But I'm going to give it a solid A minus because actually, you know what? I'm going to give it an A. You know why? Because our running game has sucked with Jerome Ford,
Hmm.
and anything's better than Jerome Ford. So I'm going to say A for Quinton Judkins.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an even A along with you. It would have been interesting had we gone Judkins first and then Henderson next, but
That'd have been hilarious.
I don't think they were planning on taking two running backs. I just think that Sampson, like
Mhm.
later in the rounds, is just like this kid shouldn't still be here. We're gonna go ahead and take him like for the value.
Yeah,
Like in the later rounds, you're not necessarily trying to pick a
you're
guy
taking the
to
best guy
plug
there.
in a need. It's just kind of like, okay, it's the fourth or fifth round. This guy's not going to start for us in this spot. So let's just go ahead and get the best guys available. And then Sampson ended up being there.
Yeah,
But out of the two, yeah, Travion, I think the
he's more of a speed guy. I want more of
more
a
of a
power
speed
guy.
guy, better in open space, more elusive. Judkins has shown that he can be a workhorse at Ole Miss, just like Nick Chubb was. And I don't know if that's necessarily playing, but he also, I don't think, has had the same amount of injuries to deal with as
No,
Travion
no, no,
either.
no.
So that's always something that the
Yeah,
NFL looks at too. So I'll give it a even A. I'm basically on the same page as you are,
yeah.
it sounds like.
This is interesting. The next one because I didn't know where they were going to go with this third round pick. I
Harold
thought
Fannin, yeah, at this
this is the
point, it
thing.
was like,
Well,
I
this is
don't
the
know,
thing.
man.
All the offensive tackles, like someone said, I think Daniel Jeremiah said this that like there was a run of offensive linemen in the first round, and the reason is because it's not a deep class, and so I knew by the third round they didn't take an offensive lineman. They weren't going to. Like it just was very obvious to me. So I'm thinking, what do you do
Yeah.
here with Fannin sitting there? If you're Stefanski going, wait a minute, we don't really have a second tight end. I like what the Chiefs do with Travis Kelce in the sense of they split him out, which we know Fannin is amazing out. Like they put him in the backfield, they put him out in the slot, they put him at tight end. He might be 6'3", 240, so a little undersized, but I think you put him with Njoku. Like, what are you going to do? You going to put a linebacker on Njoku or on Fannin? Yeah, like I don't know what you do when you defend against this. So for me, to steal him in the third round is just I personally think is a steal. I think he was very underrated because he played at Bowling Green. But you look at the numbers. I don't care who you play for. You have 117 catches. I don't care who you play for. That's impressive out of a tight end. And so for me, he was my third best tight end on the board, and I think getting him in the third round is a great win for Stefanski. I'm going to give it an A minus. Put him in there with Njoku. You can split him out wide. It's a perfect little match there.
Yeah, like you said, at this point, like all the offensive linemen, like Will Campbell, Armand Membo, Kelvin Banks, Josh Connerly, Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker, uh, Tate Ratledge, all those guys, just at that point, it's just like, okay, they're all gone. Like at this
Don't
point
waste your
in
pick.
the third round, there's a couple options here that we could go. We could go, Kyle Williams was a wide receiver that was there, and I think that yeah, New England took him from Washington State. That might turn out to be a good pick, but more upside on the receiving end, I think, is Harold Fannin at tight end. So for a third round pick, right here, I like the route that they went, getting a pass catcher. Like I said, in the second round, I would have liked to see us go receiver, or maybe grab Will Johnson, but we get a pass catcher and we get somebody that I think can fit into
Poor man's
what
Kyle
Stefanski
Pitts.
likes to do. Hopefully a rich man's Kyle Pitts,
Yeah.
dude, because we're still waiting on him to break out finally. But I'll give the Fannin pick a A minus too. Like I like the upside that he
Yeah.
could get us in round three.
Yeah. And then obviously the next pick was the pick that I think shocked everyone. I wasn't shocked they went
Dylan
quarterback
Gabriel.
because personally, I felt they're going to draft two quarterbacks. Reason because Watson's
You
out
thought
for the
they
year.
draft two.
I thought so because
You
this is
thought they
why.
draft two and go into spring camp with 5 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yes, because Watson's not playing this year. He's going to be on the pup list. He's done for the year. So you count him out. So that gives you Flacco, that gives you Pickett, and one other guy. You're going to have you at least go into camp with 4, right? Most teams go in with 4, and Watson's not going to play because he's retore his
Maybe.
Achilles.
It's just like with going into camp with 4, and like a lot of teams will do that. It's like we gave up a draft pick for Kenny Pickett. I don't
Yeah,
think we
but
just cut
but it
him
was
and
a
let
fifth
that
or
be a
sixth
waste.
though. It was a fifth or sixth. I don't. At the end of the day, I think.
It's like if that was your
And,
plan all along, just use the 6th round pick
but
on
I
a
don't
guy
think
like
this
that.
was the plan. I was going to get into this. I don't think this was
Okay.
their plan. I don't think they were planning to take 2. I don't think they were planning to take one after Gabriel. I think Gabriel was the guy they wanted. Gabriel's the guy they got. Because I believe the way they drafted it, because obviously you still had Will Howard on the board. You still had Kyle McCord on the board. You still had a lot
That's
of these
the
other
other
guys.
thing.
You had other guys that you thought could be better.
There
But
were a lot of
now
quarterbacks there that I thought would be picked ahead of him.
I understand that. And I think after listening to Stefanski talk, after listening to Barry, I think I understand why. And you can agree with me or not on this. The reason they wanted him is because a guy who's played a lot of football. And the reason I say that is because I think the way I think Stefanski and even a lot of these scouts in the NFL view it as like a guy who has a lot of reps is a guy who is going to make good decisions. I mean, to be honest, Gabriel hasn't always impressed us, but the man has not turned the ball over a lot in his career. He's the most, I mean, he has the most passing yards in history, right? Like he's played a lot of games, right? And so he's going to be 25. So he's going to be a little older. At the end of the day, I don't know if they view him as a future starter. I think it's one of those guys you draft, you hope he could be a starter, but you know for sure you got a secure backup. Because if anything, Dylan Gabriel's going to be a great backup. Personally, I believe so. To me, I think where you got him, maybe you were scared he was going to go in the 4th round. I'm not sure. But for me, I think if you would have took Dylan Sampson here, I wouldn't have been complaining. I'm going to give this a C because I see, like, I think I see what you were trying to do, but I think I'm going to give it a C because I don't know if, personally, I think Will Howard would have been a great fit in this offense. And he gives you a little more upside with the fact that he just won a championship. He knows how to win. He grinds. So I'm not saying Dylan Gabriel doesn't, but for me, I'm going to give it a C.
I'm just going to straight up give it an F. I hated the pick. So we will disagree a little bit on that. It doesn't sound like you're excited about it, but you seem to think you gotta, I guess you're following the logic or the thought there, and I still just don't. Like even if you want to go quarterback, I'm just like I don't know why they went with this guy, and everybody's been circulating the interview of him talking at the Rose Bowl about how much they love warm weather, and
Yeah,
so
I
now
know.
he's
I
going
saw
to a
that.
city
Yeah,
that's like
yeah.
being infamous for one of the best snow games last year, and usually when you're taking a quarterback at this point, you're looking for like a backup anyways. Like you're not
Yeah.
nobody's expecting Dylan Gabriel to
Yeah,
eventually be our
exactly.
starter. So there's also that, but coupled with the fact that, like I said, I thought that there were better quarterbacks available here that could be that guy. I'm just like I hate everything about it. I hate that we went quarterback in the 3rd round. I hate the guy that we took to be that, and I'm just giving it an F.
Hey, you know what? Hey, we're going to disagree at some point. The
We
next
will.
pick was Dylan Sampson, which there's an interesting take I have on this, is that I don't believe they thought he was going to be there. because
Me neither.
the way that it was going with the way they were picking was I'm thinking, okay, fourth round, they're going to go back to the defense side of the ball, either get a corner, a safety, because Latham Ransom was still there. I believe there were some other guys that were still kind of trailing around. Cody Simon was still there.
Malachi
So
Moore from
yeah,
Bama.
so there was still a lot of guys that I thought, they're going to go back to the defense side of the ball. But I think when they got to their pick and went, Dylan Sampson's still sitting here, the SEC reigning SEC Player of the Year, a guy who made a lot of teams look silly, and also a guy who he's more of a speed back. You can put him with Judkins, and now you get almost basically what Judkins did last year with Henderson in a more cheaper version of that in a sense. For me, I love the pick. I think it's great to have two backs because we've sucked so bad running the ball the last 2 years. I'm going to give it an A. I mean, for the value in the pick and the fact that you get a number two, I love it.
Yeah, I think that wasn't the plan either necessarily to take two running backs, but when a guy like Dylan Sampson is there in the fourth round, like you said, it's hard to pass that up. Like that's a guy that has talent that should have commanded an earlier pick there. And while there were no other needs out there, like you just were mentioning, and there were some guys that maybe could have filled those and been like some depth pieces, but I do like it. And for the fourth round, I'll give it an A at that point too. Like I think
The
Dylan
value,
Sampson
man.
can absolutely like be
He could
a
start
solid
if you
two-headed.
needed to.
The way that running backs are now, yeah, you can get like starting running backs in the third, fourth, fifth round now. Like that's just the way
Yeah.
the NFL like
Uh,
goes through running backs anymore.
And then we had this thing where I think, and I don't know about you, I was thinking, okay, now the draft, okay, now they're just going to get the best player available. I saw still some guys, there were some Ohio State guys still there. I thought maybe if they, because I thought they were going to go two quarterbacks, so I thought, okay, Will Howard's there. Let's go, hey, let's get Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard. Wouldn't that be a crazy story? The two guys that faced
Mm.
off in the Rose Bowl, right? So I thought, or they go McCord or something like that, right? And first off, McCord going to Philly, kind of funny that he's a Philly guy, and the fact that Howard's been screwed by Philadelphia teams in that area so much with Penn State and now the Eagles passing on him. I just think it's hilarious that he went to the Steelers. But, anyways, you get to the fifth round, and I'm thinking, okay, we have two picks left. Let's get a defense player. Let's get a receiver. Like, let's finish it out that way. And then I saw a trade happen. And this is obviously later in the night for me. And I see a trade, and I go, huh. That's interesting. Why would you trade back in the fifth round? And I hadn't looked at the board yet. I hadn't seen who's still around because I've just been like following what the Browns do. And I haven't really been paying attention. And I noticed the name Sanders still there. And I go, huh. Are they really going to be? Are they really going to? And so when they select him, obviously there's pandemonium, right? And there's craziness going on. It's funny because obviously I predicted way back in the first mock that they were going to get him with the second pick, and then you basically get him for what, 800,000 a year in the fifth round. And for me, this is what I believe happened. There's two theories that people have said. One theory is they think Haslam decided, hey, I want him for jersey sales, which could possibly be. My thought process is this: if you're Stefanski and you're sitting there going, I'm not going to have Watson, he's probably done with us. Flacco's a 1-year rental. Pickett, we haven't seen a good Pickett in 3 years. You get Dylan Gabriel. You were really just planning him to be a backup, but you get a guy who Mel Kiper, who went off on a rail, which that's a whole other story. You have guys who predicted him as the best quarterback, as a top 10 pick, sitting at 144. I get it. There might be some baggage that comes with him, but according to the Browns, they had great meetings with them. And obviously Dion's friend is the quarterback's coach and everything like that. To me, I think Stefanski and Barry just went, what the heck? The worst is a gamble. It's you lose a 6th-round pick and you spend a 5th-round pick on a guy who then you can trade off or you release in 3 or 4 years. And you know what? Nothing hurts. And I think it's a lottery ticket. I think it's honestly what they did. They went to the Shell station and they said, I want a lottery ticket. Because they said if it works and it hits a home run, now you don't have to use a quarterback draft pick next year. Now you have 2 picks that you can use for playmakers, for maybe a Caleb Downs, for something that you can do with those picks. And so for me, I think that was what they looked at as like, this is a lottery pick. And if it goes well, this is a lottery selection, we can hit bank and create a big run. And so for me, I give it, and it's going to shock because I've bashed Sajor many times on this podcast. I'm giving it an A- just for the fact of you got a guy who many thought was a top 20 25 player, 50 player. You got him at 150, 44. I'm going to get an A minus.
Yeah, it's a tough one to figure out, and I would lean more towards I think Jimmy Haslam barged in and told them they have to do this because he's done that before with other quarterbacks. He was pretty instrumental in how much money, guaranteed money we gave to Sean Watson, and he made them trade into the first round or up in the first round to get Johnny Manziel when he was slipping. So to go ahead and tell Barry and Stefanski you have to draft Shador wouldn't shock me, especially when they cut to the Browns war room and they all had like blank faces and were like golf clapping about the pick. They didn't look excited and thrilled about it. That was also after I think one of the Browns beat writers asked Barry after day
Yeah, he
two
said they
when
were tired.
Sanders was still there about like what he thinks Shador like was still there for, and it was like it sounded like there wasn't any plan to pick him at that point. Especially it's like, okay, we got Gabriel, our guy. We're not going to go ahead
Yeah.
and do that. And hindsight's 2020. We wouldn't have known that Shador would have fallen to
Fell
the
there.
fifth
Yeah,
round. But
yeah.
had we have taken him at that third round pick instead of Gabriel, I don't think I'm too upset about it because I'm kind of with you. This is a guy that most NFL media seem to think was a first round talent. The Browns have taken first round talents. I've thought in the past in the fifth and sixth rounds that I was like, what the heck? Caleb Brantley, an offensive lineman from Florida, had some character issues, and so he went from potentially first round to sixth round. It didn't work out, but it's like we wasted a sixth round pick
Yeah.
on a guy that could have maybe boomed. No big deal.
Yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, another one. A guy from Michigan that looked like he was going to be a first round pick after his junior year, had an awful senior season, but had all the athletic traits, a great combine, and still thought he might be drafted in the first few rounds. He falls to the sixth round, and we end up getting him there and giving him a shot. So I'm usually all for those picks. It's just the thing that's going to be crazy about this one, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about what you think this circus could be like, but most teams don't like having a very loud entourage around their backup quarterback. They've shown Cam Newton the door. They've shown Colin Kaepernick the door. They've shown Robert Griffin the door, and like some of these other guys that is just like we'd rather just have a quiet, boring backup quarterback,
Like
to fit
Gabriel.
that bill. Yeah, like Gabriel. Like nobody would have been calling for Dylan Gabriel to be the starter if Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett were playing bad. But you know that if we're,
Oh, for
2-5 or whatever, they're going to be calling for the Browns' fifth round pick to come in and be the starting quarterback. You're going to probably hear Deion Sanders talking about how the Browns are just mismanaging his son. Meanwhile, he's supposed to be coaching at Colorado, not even paying attention to his team and the issues they're going on over there. But
What
then
would
you
you give
can
it?
also have,
What would you
yeah,
give it?
uh, I got a few more things to say before my pick,
Yeah.
just a few thoughts. But if you do throw him in there and he like is pretty bad and everything that the NFL people like avoided him for ends up being the case, then you're gonna have, again, Dion in the media defending Shador, and if you say anything bad about him, they're gonna, come at you and
Mhm.
Dion's gonna talk about how they're not making an offense that like fits his son's traits and all that. So it's like, yeah, all of that's like a risk too. But then on the other side, it's like, what if it does work out? Like Shador's got talent. He does there's not
He
like
had
the
no
arm
offensive
strength
line.
there. Like to do as well as he did last year with no offensive line and no run game to rely on and basically just Travis Hunter and to throw the ball to and Jimmy out there was also getting some nice catches for him too. But the arm strength was a concern. There's a lot of bubble screens and like quick passes that he threw, so that was maybe, to hide some of that. He didn't throw at the combine, so it's like, okay, it looks like he's hiding something. But again, what if it does end up panning out? What if he actually gets some coaching instead of just Dion being his coach and then his potential gets realized? Some of those things get worked out. Maybe he comes in a little bit more humble now. I don't know because the draft room that he drew for himself was an absolute joke. Uh, every report that's coming out about how the NFL didn't see him as a first round guy, and they also weren't going to take him to be a backup because of the maturity that he showed in the uh in the interviews and stuff like that. But for the fact that like, hey, what if it could work out? We might have just gotten a first round talent in the fifth round. I kind of hate giving it an A, but it's just kind of like you said, the fifth round, we're not looking for any piece that's going to be like a franchise cornerstone or a day one
Yeah.
starter, but we're looking like, okay, if they can pan out, or what's the potential like here? Yeah, I mean, I'll give it an A, as crazy as that sounds. I think it's going to be a wild ride, and I think it's much more likely to blow up in their face. But
Yeah.
for what it could be, I'll give it an A.
No, look, I agree with you, man. Like I think there is a chance that Dion and then we get intervene, but I want to say what I believe there was a couple of guys on I think ESPN and even on NFL Network that were saying this. Not some of these other. There are certain personalities on in the world that were bashing the NFL because he was black or because his dad was Dion.
Every
That
single
and
thing that
so
they were
for me it's
saying is
frustrating
just
because
so
because
nonsense.
as someone who coaches quarterbacks, I can tell you there can be kids on a team that they're not that good, and it's just that it's the fact, and they don't play. So for me, that was really frustrating. But I thought there was a few that said some good things, and one of the things that was said was maybe this gives him the humble sauce that he needed because he's never had to be behind people. He's never had to be benched. He's never had to earn his right. He's always been given it, and that's nothing against Dion. I'm not saying that. Like if it was my son, I'd probably give him a little bit of extra help too, right? Like that's a reality of human nature. But I'm hoping that this truly, like Shador says, he's thankful for the opportunity because look, we know Cleveland. And if you start bashing Cleveland and you start messing with Cleveland, they're not going to be that friendly place that you think they are. Like this as well as I do. You're going to see the door as quick as anyone else. And and Haslam's shown he learned I think he learned a big lesson with Watson. I think he's lessened the fans a little bit more. If you listen to like a lot of the things he's saying outside of the stadium, like when it comes to like there was people that there was rumblings that different things or different players like this. And like I think that he's starting to let his GM do more of the job. I'm hoping that this is the case with Shadur because I think at the end of the day, it is a lottery. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk about him, Shadur, in a second with the draft story in a second. But overall grade, Josh, I'm going to give, and this might be a little low. I'm not sure. I'm going to give it a B plus. I think the overall the Gabriel draft pick hurts the overall grade for me. It would have been an A or an A minus. But I think that hurts it. So for me, I'm gonna give it a B plus. They got what they needed to, I think, improve on. Obviously, could have hit a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I'll give it a B plus.
Yeah, I threw out, I think I had an A minus, I had a C plus, I had an A, I had a
F,
an F, and an A. So I don't know exactly mathematically what that should
like a B
equate to, but I'll
minus, I
give it a
think.
B.
B or
I'll
B
give it a
minus.
round of B. Yeah, the F
Yeah,
probably weighs it down a little more because of how extreme that is, but I'll give it a B. Overall grade B.
yeah. And look, that's again. I give us your thoughts in the comments. What do you think how the Browns did? How did your team do? Right, like we've seen some other teams make some stupid choices. Like I'm sorry, the Giants fans are screwed. I'm
Their quarterback
sorry,
room's interesting.
they're screwed. But anyways, speaking on the Browns, you asked me to talk about it. And this is how I think it's going to go down. You want to hear my thought? I've been thinking about this. This is what I'm thinking is going to happen. Obviously, Watson's going to go on the pup list, which means we'll get insurance money for the following year, and he probably won't play at all this year. This is what I think is going to happen. You're going to see. I think they're not going to give many reps to Flacco because I feel like Flacco's 40. We know what he's going to give. I think it's going to really be between the three, and I honestly believe they're going to keep. This is going to shock Josh actually when I say this. They're going to keep both rookies. They're going to keep Flacco, and I think they're going to trade Pickett. I think they're going to be someone in the training camp time where maybe injuries happen or there's somebody that just needs an extra quarterback. I think they trade Pickett and they'll keep three quarterbacks, and those three are going to be two rookies and a 40-year-old. It sounds bizarre, but I think
Two
in a
rookies that they
way,
took in the
but in a
third and
way
fifth
though,
round, mind you, too.
but in a way, I think this is going to be good for both of them because they get to learn from Flacco. And I think if there's anyone in that room and if there's any head coach that can deal with Dion if he gets involved, or just Shadur's personality. I think it's Joe Flacco, who's cool as a bean, and I think it's Stefanski, who expects excellence out of his quarterbacks. So for me, I think that's what's going to happen, and it's going to be a wild ride, and maybe Dion does, but part of me feels like Dion's going to try to stay out of this a little bit. I think this might have humbled Dion because I think if he went number 2 to the Browns or whatever, I think Dion gets really involved because it involves money. But now it's like he's not going to make a lot of money. He's got to earn his right. So I'm hoping that's what happens, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, Chris Carter said that Shadur probably lost 30 to 50 million dollars with
Yeah.
the whole shtick that they've done at Colorado and that they did through the
The combine
combine and in
process.
the
Yeah.
interview processes. And I mean, he's absolutely right. He's going from 6 million to, like you said, he's going to make under $1 million a year these first few years. And what you saw with the draft room and what you saw with basically him and Shiloh streaming like the whole thing. It's like this is all about clicks. And then after he got picked, jumps in the pool, and then they go to like a club and flash in the briefcase with like $100,000 or whatever the heck, and all these like expensive chains and jewelry pieces and stuff. It's like this is what they're in it for, and it made a lot of people question if he actually does love football. It's not a race thing. We know that Cam Ward is black and was the first
But he's
overall pick.
humble. He's the
We know
humblest dude.
Cam Ward was a zero-star recruit who threw 17 total touchdowns as a high schooler in the wing T
No
offense.
flashy
That means
jewelry.
that they probably threw 17 total
Yeah.
passes in those 4 years, and
And
since
no
Cam's that good, they were all touchdowns.
and
Went to Incarnate Word, went to Washington State, went to Miami, was looking at probably being undrafted if he went last year because he initially declared, but it was such a
yeah.
good quarterback class, he decided to come back and ball out at Miami and then made himself first overall pick. And
And
we missed all of it. We missed the reaction when he got the call live on TV. We didn't get to see any highlights because ESPN made it all about Shedeur Sanders. We saw Shedeur Sanders highlights during Cam Ward's pick when he initially got the call. Dude, what like absolutely like you said, was
no
humble, showed up in a boring suit, had a thin
no
chain, a
flashiness.
alma mater pin, just was there with his mom and dad. We didn't even get to see a post-draft interview with Molly McGrath either, like she did with all the other first-round picks. They skipped that too, because Mel Kiper and everybody else up there wanted to go to bat for Shedeur and were embarrassed about how high they ranked him and then how
And can we talk about
far he fell.
can we talk about I think who was up there with them? Was it Reese Davis? It might have been whoever was there
Reese
who was
Davis,
yes.
Lewis
So
Riddick,
anyways, Reese Davis was even like Reese Davis, who is the most middle of the road guy who does not pick sides, was even like, Mel, shut up. Like even he was kind of like, dude, we get it. We're not saying he's worse than anyone. We're just saying when you bum through interviews, this is what happens. Like, and even Lewis Riddick was like, dude, are you nuts?
Lewis
Like,
Riddick has been in NFL front offices before. That's like his background and why he has the job with ESPN that he does now. And I mean, Mel Kiper, he's been terrible at ranking players for a
and he
while, and
calls
his
out the
takes are
NFL, and I
terrible.
was like, dude, what are you
But
talking about? Calling out the NFL, ridiculous.
I think Mel has a job because he basically invented and started the NFL draft industry, made people care about it, made it the TV production that it is. But what he was, that spat that was, I think, just a huge shot to his ego because I think Shador was his number one overall player,
No,
period.
it was, yes.
And to have him fall in the fifth round, I mean, that makes you look like an idiot. And he was, throwing a temper tantrum over it. I think that's all it was. And then you got, your Ryan Clarks and your Robert Griffins and everybody that are
Race
making it a
card.
race issue. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's basically their whole brand anyways. And then you have the Stephen A. Smiths that are saying this is major collusion because we know he's a first round talent, but it was an in your face Shadur. You
I'm
come
trying to
in at
teach the parents a
Colorado, you're
lesson.
making $6 million at college. We're gonna show you that you're gonna have to earn your way. And so all these GMs, all these NFL owners whose job is to win and they lose money in jobs if they don't win, are gonna all collectively be like, yeah, you know what? We're not gonna pick this first round pick. We see guys with character concerns like Johnny Manziel come through here and get drafted in the first round anyway because they're actually a first round talent. And like I was saying before, if not getting drafted on that first day showed that the NFL doesn't see him as a day one starter or maybe even necessarily a future starter. They see him more as a career backup. And since people love their backup quarterbacks to be quiet and have no circus around him, he fell majorly
Yeah.
all the way to the fifth round. I think
Yeah,
that's the easiest explanation.
it is. And look, again, we're not here like bash Shadur. Like we're not saying like he's better quarterback than both of us combined. Okay. That's just, it's a fact.
Well, I don't know
But
if I go that far, Ben.
but
Kidding.
what I will say though is this is the opportunity for him to turn the key. He either turns it to the left and keeps it going the same way he's been doing it and just making everything about him and everything that, or he can turn it to the right and say, you know what? I'm going to learn from a vet that's been around this league for 15 years, 16 years. I'm going to learn from a fellow rookie who's very humble, who's very modest. I'm going to learn from the vets in the building, from the coaches. He can do that, or he
Hmm.
can do what he's been doing, and that's the question that will ultimately make the decision of did the Browns make the right choice? Because I think the one thing the Browns are not willing to do is go through another Watson situation, and I think what's going to happen is if he becomes a problem, they are not spending a lot of money on him. I would not be shocked if they cut him at the end of the year and just be like, you know what? You're becoming too much of an issue for us. We're done. Like, this
Yeah,
is ridiculous. So
could happen.
it is fascinating. Obviously, there was a lot of other, cool stories that happened in the draft. Nothing too crazy, other than the Giants going to suck still. And 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 I look at the Jaguars like you're really all betting in on Travis Hunter. You gave up a first next year for
Their
Travis,
general manager, dude, he's a first year.
30 years old.
Sometimes those guys want to make a splash, and I mean, this is exactly what that is. And when they asked him why he did it, he said, sometimes you got guys that can change a game, sometimes you got guys that can change a team, and he believes Travis Hunter is one of the few guys
Ooh.
ever that can change the sport, how it is
Can you
played.
imagine that if the Browns would have drafted Travis Hunter and then Shadur in the fifth round, they would be teammates again? Wouldn't that have
That
been
would have
wild?
been, yeah, that would have been absolutely insane too, dude.
That'd have been
The
wild.
NFL wouldn't have been able to handle that.
Yeah, and or the fact that somehow the guy from Louisville is better than Will Howard and some of these other guys. I like again, some of these draft
That was
picks
the other
I
thing
don't
that was
get.
fascinating, dude, is the way that the quarterbacks went in order. Like Tyler Shuck was the third quarterback
Yes.
taken. Jalen Milrow was the fourth. And all these guys, plus Will Howard, plus Kyle McCord, plus Curtis Rourke, all went ahead of Quinn Ewers.
Yeah. I think it just shows that Quinn Ewers probably should have, taken the 6 million he was being offered at other schools. Probably should have done that. Might have been a smart idea. Make his
If
money
if
that
it
way.
was all about money, but I heard Josh Pate go on a pretty good segment about this. Quinn's family isn't hurting for money.
No.
They had like about one of every dead animal on their
Yeah, I know.
wall.
I
Usually
know.
those aren't cheap. Quinn's also been
He's an
a
oil baby.
legacy kid at Texas. I know he started off at Ohio State, but he's going to leave as like, one of the being remembered as one of the better Texas quarterbacks of recent
Yeah.
memory. And it wasn't quite to the level of Vince Young or Colt McCoy, but he's going to have a great spot there. He's going to get a lot of opportunities for being a Texas quarterback. So he
Yeah.
didn't ruin it by playing the portal game. And there's also, it's like, how much more could he have gotten better by going to college? I don't know. But obviously wanted to be in the NFL, and that was the decision he made. But yeah, he did end up losing a lot of money. That's like objectively true.
Yeah, it's a crazy. Can we also talk about how a this is just funny to me. We had a long snapper drafted. We had a punter and two kickers drafted before Quinn Ewers and before I think Rourke, before some of the quarterbacks, and I think even before Will Howard. We had two kickers chosen before Will Howard. It's
Hmm.
wild to me that someone would spend a. Also, that means Justin Tucker's probably done with the Ravens because they drafted a kicker, which you don't draft kickers if you're not going to actually keep them on your team.
Usually not. And Justin Tucker did kind of fall off last year.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. So those are our grades. We don't want to spend too much time because we do want to move on to another Cleveland team there, Josh. Another Cleveland team that is not the Guardians because obviously, they're okay. But a team right now that is dominating in the playoffs. Would you say, Josh? Can you tell us about that team that is just all of a
Straight
sudden
up
still
dominated,
dominating?
Ben. It's almost like the one seed in the East was playing the 10 seed in the East, and these are the kind of scores and the results that you'd expect.
As Charles Barkley said, I don't like to say the word quit, but they sure made quitting look easy.
Yeah, let me go ahead and read our listeners here some of the
We're talking about
scores
the
here. If you
Cavaliers,
haven't
by the way, if you haven't heard, if you haven't
Yeah,
figured that out yet.
Yeah, yeah. If you haven't been paying attention to the Cavs scores, they've defeated the Heat 121 to 100, 121 to 112, 124 to 87, and 138 to 83 in game five or game four. Like Miami Heat are, known as those like gritty junkyard dogs. You don't want to get swept in the first round, but here they are just, losing by 50,
First
dude.
sweep post LeBron in the playoffs.
Yeah.
First sweep post LeBron.
Yeah, yeah. So I say all that to be like maybe having the stupid play in with the 7, 8, 9, and tens. Like I get it. It's
So dumb.
it's extra games. It's trying to bring more views. It's trying to make the end of the season a little more competitive because it means that those 9 and 10 seeds aren't technically eliminated yet. But this is embarrassing. This is stupid. It's pointless. There's not 20 teams in the NBA that can win an NBA
Tell
championship.
us how you really feel,
Just like
Josh.
there's,
Tell
yeah.
us how you really feel.
I think it's dumb. Like the NBA, everybody asks the question why the
In the
ratings are
play-in
going down,
tournament.
and they do things like this. Yeah.
In the play-in tournament.
Yeah, the play-in
No, no,
tournament,
no,
not fun.
the cup tournament, sorry. The middle of the year cup tournament as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that one too. Yeah. Well, just like there's not 12 teams that can win a college football playoff, there's not 20 teams that can
Do
win an NBA championship.
Do you feel like this Cavs team, if they keep playing at this level, because obviously the Thunder are dominating as well in the West, do you feel like this Cavs team right now can win the title?
It's tough to make that judgment after watching the Heat because, like I said, that's trash and that's
Yeah, I know,
exactly
I
what should
know.
have happened. But um, looking through the rest of the field, though, I mean, Milwaukee's kind of been a
Well,
little
they're
bit of a
done.
disappointment.
Well, they're
They're
done.
Are they like actually
Yes.
eliminated too?
So the Pacers
Okay,
are going to be facing the Cavs.
Pacers will face the Cavs. Okay, yeah. Through the rest of the field, the Knicks were a team that we talked about that hadn't really beaten any of the good
They're up
teams.
3-2
So
right now. As we're recording this, they're up 3-2.
okay, Boston was a team that really the only team that I think we need to be
Yeah.
scared of.
At least in the East,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Indiana, like in the LeBron days, even they weren't really that scary of a team to go against, and even this year, it's like you got to respect some of the guys there. They got a decent squad with Turner and Siakam and Halliburton, and I think you got a fun
Oh yeah, that
Halliburton
was fun.
story to share.
So
Yeah,
they obviously won. They won the series, obviously, and I don't know if it was like after the game winner or it was like right after the game. Tyrese's dad, I guess, he sits like courtside or whatever. And like, let's just put it in perspective. His dad's like 5'10", like maybe 5'11", like he's not a big guy. He comes on the court just like, he's celebrating with the team, which first off, why are we allowing fans just to run the court in the NBA? It's confusing to me. And then he's on the court and he's got this big like flag with his son's face on it. And he's just like, chanting like, yeah. And then he sees, Giannis just standing there, obviously distraught, obviously frustrated. And he gets like, I don't know, about 2 feet away from him and just throwing the flag in his face and basically saying some expletives and saying like, this is what we do. And then a little bit of time, I guess, went away, and Giannis did not like it. And he gets like face to face. Their heads are touching, by the way, like face to face, saying something to his dad. And supposedly they got separated. And then afterwards, Giannis kind of went into detail about it and explained like it just I don't feel like there's a place on the in the game for this. Like it's ridiculous. And even Halliburton came out and said like, yeah, I talked with my dad. I talked with Giannis. Like my dad was in the wrong, and like that's a lot for Halliburton to say because he could have just defended his dad, but he kind of said, "Dude, what are you doing?" So for me, it's interesting. I just think it's kind of an interesting story that's happened. But yeah,
hmm yeah. So out in the East, I feel pretty good about the Cavs' chances
yeah, I
even
think so
before
too.
that Heat series. The West though is
It's tough. That's a
the
tough
teams I
group.
think we got to worry about because Nuggets and Clips like at 4 and 5. It's like we know the Nuggets are four, but we know like the way that Jokic is, what can happen over there. The Warriors, they're up 3-1 right now on the Rockets, and the Rockets seem like the fakest two seed ever. Like it's still wild to me that they even got that
Yeah, I
seed.
know it's really kind of weird to be honest.
Yeah, although it's basically just Steph and Butler out there, so I don't think
Yeah.
they're gonna go much further.
And Draymond
Timberwolves and
Green, Draymond
Lakers,
Green. By the way, Draymond Green saying that Mobley is not really a defensive player of the year. I'm like, really? Have you seen what do you do? All you do is like talk trash and then set screens and
and
like
make
rebound.
podcasts.
Like that's all you do. So like
Yeah,
Mobley's doing a lot more than you on both sides of the ball.
yeah. Lakers and Timberwolves, like yeah, the LeBron Luca duo is definitely gonna be something scary. But Minnesota's up 3-1 right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Minnesota's up 3-1, and Anthony Edwards, man, you can never count that kid out. That kid loves
And
playing
the
basketball.
Lakers just lost their last game after playing all their starters the whole second half. Didn't sub anybody out. So if that's their
Really.
mentality, I don't know how they're going to make it very far.
They might get gas, yeah. I mean, they don't have that depth. Like
No.
that was, I think, why they needed to go out and get a piece like Luca to begin with, and then you're relying on 40-year-old LeBron, and it's like after that, it's like, okay, do we really
Bronny,
think Austin Reeves is all that? Do we think Finney Smith's all that? Bronny James, yeah. Bronny James has gotten a grand total of 2 minutes this postseason so far, so they're not really even
then you
counting
got
on
the
that dude
Thunder.
either.
That's the team I'm scared of, to
The
be
Thunder
honest.
is the main one that you got to worry about. Yes, they have swept the first round too against the Grizzlies, uh, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I guess is the MVP
Even
of
though
the league or
Jokic is
will be.
freaking averaging a
Yeah,
triple double.
leading the way over there. Who would have thought, Ben? The Thunder were that team that were basically trading everybody for picks and picks and picks and picks and picks all those years, and here they are, the one seed out west, and they're being led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren and Andrew Wiggins.
But I will
Not
say
one of
if
the guys that
all
they picked, but
but I will say the Thunder, the team they're going to struggle with against the most is the Cavs because of the Cavs' length. I mean, there's one point when they have Mobley out there at 7 foot, Allen at 7 foot, Hunter at 6'9", Dean Wade at 6'9". They start four dudes like that out there. Like it's hard to go against that.
My absolutely uneducated opinion too is that no one has as much depth as the Cavs do.
Oh no, they
Like
play
maybe
like
we
they
don't,
play like 10
maybe we
deep.
got some of the, maybe we got some of the weaker star power with Garland Mitchell, and that's not disrespect to them. I think there's some better duos out there, but like you just said, like how many guys or how many teams got 8, 9, 10 guys they can throw out there and count
I
on?
mean,
The Lakers certainly don't.
Ty Jerome is like the eighth dude off the bench, and he's averaging 16 a game.
Yeah. Yeah, Lakers certainly don't have more than really four that it looks like they even trust to be able to count on, and
Yeah,
Warriors don't have that many that they can count on. But looking at the Cavs, like that's going to be something that's really going to help us. I think is the depth pieces right there. Just like you said, all the way through. We got Garland, we got Mitchell, Jerome, Mobley, Allen,
Hunter,
Hunter,
Struss.
Struess, Merrill, Okoro. Like
Still think it's fun
we're gonna be
though.
okay.
Still think it's fun that Struss played at Cedarville. He played against Cedarville one game in his career. Still kind of fun. Still like a fun little fact I have.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna. I don't know how much of the NBA playoffs I'll pay attention to outside the Cavs, but like I
That's
said,
all
I
I pay
think the
attention to.
yeah, I think the depth is gonna be something that's really gonna help them going forward.
Yeah. And I guess our final thing. I guess our final thing is talking about baseball. I
Yeah, the
guess
mood around our baseball teams right now. I think right now the Cleveland fan base is starting to wake up to the fact that they
their bullpen's
messed
not that
up
good.
by trading away guys to save money and bringing in value picks that ultimately aren't panning out. Brian Rocchio, who is our shortstop right now, is probably the worst shortstop that Cleveland's ever had and probably the worst in the entire league right now. And he's supposed to be a defensive specialist, not known for his bat, and he's got the second most errors, I think, since the start of last season at that position. So it's like, what are we doing here, man? Your OPS is under 600. That's absolute
It's the
trash. You're
Cleveland way,
slashing
man.
like
It's the Cleveland
200,
way.
300, 300. It's terrible. And this ain't even the catchers. I'm talking about our shortstop. We don't have bad shortstops in Cleveland, Ben. I thought what would have been great, long term is to have Jimenez eventually switch over to short. And when Bazana comes up, he can play second base. Or in the meantime, go out and pay for a guy like Willie Adames to come and play shortstop. Keep Jimenez at second. We don't need to trade Josh Naylor. We can play him and Kyle Manzardo together. They can coexist. But here we are, and our bullpens and starting rotations getting burned too, man. We had back-to-back days with throwing position players out on the mound. When we talked last time, we talked about how we swept the Pirates and that, looks cool and all, but we weren't winning dominantly. We were kind of getting lucky, and it was just because of the fact that we were playing the Pirates, basically. We didn't dominate them like the Cavs just dominated the Heat. And then we had the harder route to go. We started off with a series against the Yankees. We had a series against the Red Sox, and we're going against the Twins right now, and they're spanking our butts right now. But that's kind of the mood in Cleveland right
Hey,
now. We currently boast a 16 and 13 record, second in the Central, 2 games behind the Tigers.
well, the Reds were like on a roll. They won five in a row. I mean, okay, now they did sweep the Rockies, which is like sweeping my grandma.
Rockies
Like
might be the worst team
it's
ever.
so
We thought the
bad.
White
This is
Sox
the
were
thing,
terrible
though.
last year.
The difference is though is from the two teams is that the Rockies actually have really good young bats. Like they have a lot of young bats that are really good. Anyways, so the Reds dominate that series. Ellie De La Cruz now today, as of today, so they had a doubleheader today. They lost the first one to the Cardinals, which they shouldn't be losing to the Cardinals because Cardinals are terrible. But they lost the first one, so snapped the 6 game winning streak they had. But before this game, they were a game and a half back of the Brewers, so or the Cubs, sorry. So they were right there. Obviously, Ellie De La Cruz extended his hitting streak to 13 games. This is the best he's looked in a long time. He's getting on base. He's got on base 17 straight games. He's stealing bases. He's
Gavin
hitting,
Lux is
yeah,
third in the league in batting average
yeah.
too.
Now he just snapped his 12-game hit streak, so we'll see if that starts
Mm.
going down. But Novelli Marte, who was suspended 80 games last year, is hitting a tear. He's hitting 340. Look, they have the best catcher duo, by the way. Hey, you know what? You know what a catcher that hits 300's like? Oh, you don't. But we have two of them.
We
If you want
don't.
one, do you want one of them? We could trade. We could do it. You could take one if you wanted, because we have two of them that hit over 300 right now.
Hmm.
So if you would like that, you can. You could
Give
try.
Chris Antonetti a call. Yeah.
But other than that, like man, the Reds they're up and down, and we'll see what happens. So that's all I gotta say is
Yeah.
that, and also. Can we talk about the Savannah Bananas? Can we just make them an MLB team just for the entertainment purposes?
No. I've been seeing a lot more hate for the Savannah Bananas on the
I
internet
think
lately,
it's
man. Some of
because
it I
I
think's
think it's because
extreme.
I think it's because they're pushing the waters almost too much. Like I think there's some things they're doing there. I'm like, you're like, there's one thing to annoy the purist. There's another thing to like truly changing the game to the point where it doesn't really seem like baseball anymore. Like that's the
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. Like at least when you watch the Harlem Globetrotters, there's a sense
It's
of
still
okay,
basketball.
we still got some basketball going on here. But yeah, Savannah Bananas, like you got, all these guys that are doing synchronized dancing out on the field when they're supposed to be playing defense, and it's like this is not what
What's I
baseball
think
is supposed to be.
an anonymous major leaguer said something like it's good to get people interested in the game, but it's not treating the game with respect, is what I think someone said. Like it's great for entertainment, but to say it's baseball is almost like offensive to the game of baseball in a sense,
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know if that's what it is all about is getting people in baseball. I don't know if many people are going to see the Savannah Bananas and be like, "Oh, let's see what like real professional baseball is like," and then watch it
Yeah.
and be like, "This isn't anything like what I just watched."
Yeah.
In
Yeah, it's true.
the different ways where it's like you can watch the Globetrotters and then see like an NBA game, or you can like see how things are done at Top Golf and then maybe watch the Masters. And I think there's a little bit smaller of a gap between, I
Yeah.
guess, their arcade version. I don't know what other word to describe it,
Yeah.
and the real version. And
Yeah. I
Savannah
mean,
Banana tickets are super expensive too, dude. Like when they came
they
to
said they were
Cleveland, the
cheap.
cheapest
This
I
is the
saw
thing.
was like
They said that
700.
they like he did an interview and was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to keep it family friendly, keep it families oriented." I'm like, "Dude, have you seen your prices? I can go to a Reds
Yeah.
game cheaper than a Santa Ana Bananas
Yeah.
game."
Most
But
recently, though, they were at Death Valley Clemson, dude, the football field, and sold out 81,000 fans, dude.
I will say this: my name for them would be Neb Nedwab. That would be my name, just my name backwards.
If you were on the field, that'd be your name.
Yeah, that would be the name that I would go by. Neb Nedwab. It's my name backwards. It's a great name to have in Kahoot, by
I
the
was gonna
way.
say, where's that come from?
It's
But
my name
okay,
backwards. And it's a
I got it.
great name to have on Kahoot because people are very confused when you're playing Kahoot and they're like, who's Neb? It's me.
Yeah.
It's just my alter ego. Um,
Hmm.
so anyways, that's pretty much about baseball. I mean, it's not really much. There's not many other news really going on really out there in the world. I don't think so. I mean, Shaq became general manager of the San Francisco State.
Yeah.
Um,
And not exactly sports, but Bill Belichick had that
oh
absolutely
my goodness.
cringe, awkward interview with
Okay, I want to get your
CBS.
take on this. Do you feel like Bill has like is like manipulated and like is being held hostage? Do you think he's lost his mind? Do you think he's just like he doesn't realize that like what she's doing behind his back? Do you feel like she wrote the book and he just kind of like said okay, whatever? Like I'm very confused now.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of Bill Belichick because when he was coaching the New England Patriots and winning Super Bowls, we thought that he was this absolute football genius that scouted Division III guys that were going to be, the next great thing. We thought that he was, all ball, like absolute no time for any other nonsense other than that. And since Tom Brady has left, it really is obvious that I'm not to take away anything from Belichick and his role in all those, but Brady was the main driver in those Super Bowls. Very obvious there. And Bill Belichick just kind of now just seems kind of lame, honestly. Like
He
as
does.
even as a person, like he just seems like not like that
Like you show up to an
driven
interview with
alpha
a holy
locked in.
sweatshirt?
Well, that didn't shock me at all that he had a
No,
sweatshirt that
but
he's
it's
probably
even
had
like,
since he was
but
12 years old that he was still
why does
wearing.
she have to be there? Why does she have to be CC'd on every email? Like I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like how are
Why is
you not
she
a
interrupt and
booster?
say we're not talking about this or we'll talk about that? We're
And
not talking
also,
about this.
can we point out that they also lost a former five-star tackle to Syracuse today? They also lost a defensive end to Ohio State. Like they're losing good players. To me, I go, when does the boosters and when does the athletic department go, okay, Bill, either you decide to like freaking like get rid of her off of this like because she's even done like Chapel Bill and like she's trademarked stuff under her name. Like at this point, like I feel like he's just now a puppet. And I feel like it's Joe
Yes.
Biden. Oh, sorry, did I say that? Is it Sleepy Bill now instead of Sleepy Joe? I don't
Bill
know.
Biden,
Um, so,
Joe
but
Belichick.
I want to know your take. Like, do you feel like does the boosters need just to say like, dude, we're not giving you guys any more money until this is figured out?
I still thought it was weird, dude, because like going to the college level after being able to basically, be a jerk to pro players. Like you can't really do that at college now with the way that they'll just like enter the portal and stuff. But
Or do you think his son is truly coaching and he's just like there as like the head
I don't know.
of the
Like
team?
if you're the North Carolina football program, you don't really get many opportunities to get a coach like this. So I get why
No.
they did it. I just don't think he's going to have the impact or the generational change that they think that they're going to see in North Carolina. I don't think that they're going to be a
Like,
college football playoff contender. I don't think they're even going to be an ACC
would
contender.
you
I think they're just going to, maybe their ceiling would be 9 or 10 wins like it was with Mac Brown, and that's about as good as it's ever going to
like
be.
at the end of the day, if you had the choice of having two free agent coaches, Bill Belichick or Ryan Day, which one are you taking? I
Everybody's
think
taking Ryan Day.
everyone's taking Ryan Day. Why? Because the
I
dude
think
knows how to
even in
build
the
cultures.
NFL, in most cases, people would give Ryan Day a shot in the NFL, never having head coaching experience in the NFL over
Yeah,
Bill Belichick right now.
it is wild. It truly is. But yeah, this has been a really great show. It's been a little longer of a show today. Um, Josh, but we've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it to
Yeah,
grade. Well, we've graded our draft, which is great. The draft for the Browns. And yeah, anyways, I want you guys down below. I want you to leave your comments. Two comments I want you to leave. One, obviously I said earlier, what do you grade your team? But second one, do you feel Shadur is going to be a starter, or do you feel like he's going to be ultimately wash out and go to the Argonauts in Canada and play for them because no one else wants him? Because honestly,
or maybe
The way Canada's going right now, let him go there. Just if he really wants to,
could be
it's fine.
Canada, but I wouldn't rule out the Cowbells maybe making
Oh,
a
stop
potential
it!
signing
Stop
either.
it! No, no, I couldn't stand that. I would be like, I'd lose my mind. Can barely deal with these drama queens now. Anyways, it's been a show and it's been an enjoyable one. I hope you guys have a great. Actually, tomorrow's Labor Day. As we're recording this, tomorrow's Labor Day in Hungary, so I'm gonna enjoy
Labor
Labor
Day and
Day.
Hungary, we still gotta wait about four
Yeah,
months for
for
that.
once for you guys. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Hope you guys watch some sports, maybe watch some baseball, some playoff basketball, some hockey.
Playoff hockey still going
Yeah.
on.
Let us know what you're doing as well this weekend, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll see. Until next time, we'll see ya.